When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
This episode is brought to you by Prime. What if you had one more chance with the one that got away?
Sam, you came home.
Based on the best-selling novel from Carly Fortune. Every Year After follows childhood friends Sam and Percy as they reunite in the dreamy, nostalgic lakeside town of Barry's Bay.
Love can be hard to find. So if you're lucky enough to find that person, never let go.
A second chance at first love. Every Year After. Streaming June 10th, only on Prime.
100 Welcome to 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. I'm your host, Brian Slagel. I am the CEO of Metal Blade Records. You can go to metalblade.com if you want to get more information about that. The next time you're in Las Vegas, or if you currently live in Las Vegas or the Las Vegas area, you need to visit the Metal Blade Museum. Now, not only are there artifacts from Metal Blade artists like Metallica, Slayer, Cannibal Corpse, Gwar, Lizzie Borden, there's also artifacts from bands that we had something to do with as well, like Guns N' Roses, Megadeth, Alice in Chains, Deep Purple, Thin Lizzy, Alice Cooper, all sorts of stuff. So it's a really great metal museum. It's located right near the Strip in Las Vegas. Also, our retail store is also now in the museum. So you can go pick up your Metal Blade vinyl, CDs, collectibles, shirts, all sorts of cool stuff. Just go to metalblade.com/museum for all the details. In the meantime, we're going to talk about my favorite band of all time, and that's Iron Maiden. We're going to talk about the song Number of the Beast, and I'm sure other things. So great. I always love to talk about Iron Maiden. This podcast could be 3 hours if it was up to me talking about Maiden. We're going to talk to my buddy, the great lead singer of Queensryche, Todd La Torre. It's going to be a lot of fun. Welcome back, Mr. Jay Ruston, to talk about the production and our idol, Mr. Martin Birch. So that'll be fun. But as always, we're going to begin it up in Canada, and let's see what Martin Popoff has to say.
Okay, Brian, very cool. Iron Maiden, The Number of the Beast. What we've got here is Iron Maiden's third album, first one with Bruce Dickinson, March 22nd, 1982, recorded very quickly on antiquated equipment at the Battery in London. It gives it its own kind of interesting charm. It's got a Martin Birch production, like an actual characteristic Martin Birch production, where the bass tones, Steve Harris brings his own approach to bass, but bass drum and bass tone are kind of in the lower end of the mid-range rather than very, warm and boomy kind of thing. And you definitely hear that on here. So we've got this spoken word intro. Amusingly, they wanted Vincent Price to do it, but he was demanding £25,000. So they got a guy that sounds exactly like Vincent Price, and we all thought it was Vincent Price pretty much. This is a voice actor or an actor, Barry Clayton. This song is based on, it's not a particularly satanic song, even though they got trouble for that. It's got a satanic title, of course, but it was inspired by a nightmare that Steve Harris had after watching Damien Omen 2, which is a pretty creepy movie, and then also influenced by Robert Burns' Tam O'Shanter. But yeah, you get that dramatic spoken word opening, and then you've got this riff coming in and the hi-hats, and I've never liked that riff very much. I find it very sing sing-songy and a little bit like children's music, and it's got one of those little Celtic turnarounds, that thing. So we were talking about this song actually the other day. It's almost like a very, very cheery song for not a very cheery topic. So yeah, I mean, that's also what makes it so beloved in the Maiden catalog. They played it live almost every show they've ever done, right? And it also has one of the great, rock and roll screams of all time, where Bruce does that just big scream. And, apparently there's some frustration in that scream from Martin Birch making him work on it over and over again. So he was definitely getting worn out doing this. You've got I think it's 229. You've got that new ascending section to the solo section. I really like the guitar solo in this song. I think it's very musical. Another thing I really like about this song is that we've got one of those gather the wagons and let's get back for another late verse. So it's not one of these, a lot of songs kind of peter out. They do, just now it's time for the bridge and the chorus and the solo. We never get another verse. I like these songs where you get another verse near the end. So that comes in at 3:45. It's definitely a crowd favorite. It's melodic. Like I say, it's got a little bit of that sweet and sour thing to me. It's always rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. It just sounds a little bit too cheery, or like I say, sing-songy kind of thing, like an odd kind of children's-y melody, I suppose. I don't want to say anything too bad about it, because I know, Brian, this is your favorite album of all time by anybody. Pretty wild. It occupies the badass position on the album, and that to me is first track, side 2. There's a lot of interesting side 2 first tracks, and I think it's pretty cool that it's there. And it sounds so much like the opening of the album, but of course it's not. So yeah, absolutely. Very cool song. Iron Maiden, The Number of the Beast.
You never know what you're going to get with Martin. I did not expect that at all. Interesting takes from Martin. Wow. All right. I guess we can agree to disagree, but still some really good information in there. And, Martin sometimes will have a differing of opinion, but
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Where is Daredevil? I'm right here. Don't miss the return of Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again.
So what's next?
I feel liberated. We're gonna take this city back. Over medicated. In an all-new season, now streaming only on Disney+.
They're hunting us. It's time we started hunting them.
I can work with that.
This should be tons of fun.
Marvel Television's Daredevil Born Again, now streaming only on Disney+.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
I think most of us out there will agree this song is one of the all-time classic heavy metal songs ever, and we will delve into it a little bit more now. All right, we welcome back to the podcast our old friend. He's done hundreds and hundreds of classic metal and rock albums, producing, mixing, engineering, all of the above. You know him well. Mr. Jay Ruston, how are you, sir?
Very well, Brian. Thanks for having me again.
Always love to have you. Thank you for doing it. And what a surprise, what a shock. We are yet again talking about Martin Birch. Produced record. Shocking.
Why not? I'll talk about Martin Birch every day.
I know. I am with you there. It's amazing how many, and we're not done talking about Martin Birch either, by the way.
No.
We have more stuff coming up. But this is a really interesting record. So we're talking about the song Number of the Beast, and of course off the album Number of the Beast. And as I've mentioned before, this is my favorite record of all time, so I'm very biased. But it's interesting when you get into the production of the record, because obviously there was a huge shift here. You have Paul Di'Anno leaving and Bruce Dickinson coming in, and two vastly different singers. And I found it fascinating how, for Martin Birch, especially the producer, to go from Maiden with Paul Di'Anno and doing, the last record with him, and then this new one, it's like, wow, that's a huge difference in really everything. And they mentioned that Steve Harris actually, when he's writing this record, he felt he could do more with the music and make it more complicated because he felt Bruce could actually sing that. And I wanted to bring this thing up really quickly because Martin Birch had this really great quote that I had never seen before. Martin said, talking about the record and Bruce Dickinson, "I simply didn't think Paul Di'Anno was capable of handling lead vocals on some of the quite complicated directions I knew Steve wanted to explore. when Bruce joined, it opened up the possibilities for the new album tremendously. Talking about Number of the Beast, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, it's like night and day. It's two different bands. It sounds like two different bands. The change from one record to the next with this band is always an interesting jump, but between these two is just insane. Clearly jumping from Paul to Bruce, it's like a punkish band becoming a progressive metal band almost.
And the amazing thing is they're both phenomenal records.
Oh, yeah.
And it's crazy how you can make that transition. I always felt when they announced Bruce that he was going to be great because I'm a huge Samson fan and I thought it would be perfect. But people were kind of concerned about it. But even the production, that's what really, when you kind of sit down and focus on that for a minute, it really is amazing how, and again, this is the genius of Martin Birch. Like these two records are Killers and this record are both amazing records. They both sound perfect, even though it's like literally almost two different bands.
Right. And Number of the Beast for me is probably Maiden's best sounding album. It has the best bottom end. For me, it's like Rush 2112 and Number of the Beast from Maiden are each band's like best sounding, like start of the career, like records. And of course, they both made killer sounding records after these, but it just has like that punchy drum sound, which I'll get into drummers in a second, but it just has such a thickness and warmth, but it's still aggressive. And back to Bruce, having produced many singers and read countless articles about this record, interviews, watching behind the music, the making of whatever I could sink my teeth into, the story of the intro to this song and Bruce trying to get that vocal and Martin pushing him for 2-3 hours just to get the beginning. I've been there. I've been there very recently with singers. It's just, as a producer, if you have something in your head and you know that they can do it and you know exactly how it should sound, but they're not hearing it yet, and until they hear themselves doing it and they're just like, holy shit. I mean, obviously Bruce is well documented in saying his frustration with that session and then, of course, finally getting it and be like, for fuck's sakes, was that it? Like kind of vibe. And they finally get it, of course, and it's just absolutely brilliant. I can imagine being there and hearing him do that intro and maybe not quite as whispery or not quite as intense, or he was just doing what he thought was cool. And Martin clearly heard in his head what that should sound like, and he just kept pushing him until they got it. And then, of course, the massive scream and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and they were under a time crunch for this record. I mean, they did it in 5 weeks, which, is a long period of time back in the 80s, but still not a lot of time for, a band at that point on a major label. So they had to get it done in 5 weeks. And it was definitely, again, new singer, new everything. I think it went fairly well from what I understand. And I remember Bruce saying, aside from this song, actually, a lot of the takes were 1 or 2 takes for the vocals on a lot of the rest of it. So he clearly got it.
I mean, I believe that.
Yeah, I know this one was difficult. I've same thing like you. I've read all the stories about how difficult it was for him to get the beginning of this song right. And again, the legend of Martin Birch, he clearly knew what he wanted and he was right because that intro is incredible.
It is absolutely insane. And, it doesn't surprise me that they recorded it that quickly. This is a band like building and building, getting to their peak. And clearly amazing live. They get this great new singer. The energy was probably incredible. They're at Battery Studios in London, which is an incredible studio. The planets aligned, obviously. And for me, I love Clive Burr. I love his drumming. He's super punchy, really straight. Not to take anything away from Nico, he is amazing. But Nico's a very busy drummer. He's a little lighter. He's a little fancier with his hands and stuff. And I always found Nico's his kick drum, to be very busy, especially on the following records. And
a lot of galloping.
Yeah, a lot of galloping, which is fine, but there's a way to do galloping without, overplaying. And I just love the simplicity of the drums on this record, yet they're still hard to play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I was always a massive Clive Burr fan and was honestly devastated when he left because I thought he was truly amazing and unique and just fit so perfectly with the band. And, when Paul left, I was super bummed out, obviously, because, it was my favorite band and the singer's leaving. But I was even more crushed when Clive left because just nobody can play like him. He's like, Dave Lombardo or Keith Moon or, those drummers, they're just so good. Nobody plays like him. And I thought he added so much to the band. That being said, Nico's been amazing. Every record they've made, in my opinion, except for the ones with Blaze Bayley, are amazing records. And, and Nico's done really well. But yeah, I'm with you. I just love Clive, the way he played. It's just amazing.
I like the way he leans into the downbeat on a lot of the songs. So it's like you sort of feel like you're going da 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 da. And he puts this accent on the downbeat in a lot of the songs where that's not allowed in metal now. Like every kick drum is the same volume and just sounds like a typewriter, which drives me insane. The dynamic is kind of gone, Yeah. And that's what's great about Lars and Nico and drummers from that era that were playing metal. The technology, didn't allow things to sound like a typewriter. So it just was what it was. But it works so well with these songs because it creates a dynamic that does not exist in metal.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And, I think the reason why they had to record it so quickly is it took them a long time to write it because they didn't have as much coming into this record. The first two records, they had written most of those songs. They pretty much had 2 records worth of material written. But this one, they had to kind of write from scratch. And again, New singer, different style of singer. So it took a longer time to write the record before they got in the studio. But yeah, clearly the band is just so good and they're on fire back then that it made sense that they would make this just basically a historic record.
I agree. And the way they tuned drums back then, like snare drums were always tuned a little lower, not too much ring. Like they just had this nice brightness and this punch to them. Also, one of Martin's things, he just got a great snare drum sound no matter what.
Yep.
Some of the later Maiden records, like Getting Up into Seventh Son and Fear the Dark and stuff, which were still Martin, but they didn't have the same oomph and bottom. And the late 80s records got progressively thinner, which bummed me out because there was such a beautiful bottom end happening in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this before because on both Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son, and I absolutely love Seventh Son, by the way. They were using those, what was that Tom Scholz thing that he made, the little amps?
Oh, the Rockman.
The Rockman. They were using Rockmans to record. A lot of bands were doing that back then. It was kind of the thing to do. But I miss the heaviness of a Marshall amp, and I just felt those guitars were not better on Seventh Son than they were on Somewhere in Time. Look, they're both still amazing records. I love them. But I could have used a chunkier guitar sound like they had on this record, for example.
Yeah, the Rockman is a good sound in a certain way, but it's very mid-rangey. And obviously it's very defined with Def Leppard, Billy Idol. Steve Stevens was a big user of that. And
yes,
it has a very specific sound. And I thought the way Mutt Lange handled it was he did a very good job with it because he would EQ it and manipulate it and make it sound like an amp. And I know what you're saying. As I love Somewhere in Time, the guitar sound doesn't bother me all that much. I just love the songs and the vibe.
Same here. And it's amazing. I just a little more crunch because I'm used to the crunch on all the records before that a little bit. But, I'm just
sure.
I'm nitpicking a bit just because.
Well, isn't that what we do?
Yeah, right. But I will say that, and look, Martin Birch has worked with a ton of incredible drummers, but one of the many things about his production I always loved is the drum sound was always amazing, always a little bit different, but was always really amazing.
Always
you could hear everything, even if it wasn't like up front in the mix, because it's hard to mix metal because you've got everything's kind of in the same frequency. The guitars, the bass, the kick drums are kind of all in that same frequency. And to get everything where you can hear everything really well and not be muddy is a difficult thing to do. And of course, Martin, it seemed like he's just natural at doing that.
Well, plus you have 2 guitar players with their own distinct sounds and different distinct ways of playing.
Yep.
He had recorded Rainbow, he did Black Sabbath, 1 guitar bands. Maybe that's even harder. I don't know, like in his case, but with this band, you're right. Like the picture of the band is so clear, but nothing suffers.
Well, Maiden's one of those bands, like Priest as well, that they're a 2-guitar band and they both play in the studio. A lot of bands that have 2 guitar players, like Metallica example, just James plays all the rhythms and then, Kirk does the leads. A lot of bands that have 2 guitar players do that in the studio, but Maiden never did that. Both guys play, you can clearly hear. And even on the later records, there's 3 guitar players. I don't think, Yannick does more leads and he's always doing that lead background noise over the vocals and stuff. But all the guys are actually playing on the records, which isn't the case for all metal bands that have 2 guitar players.
No, that's very true. And I've worked with some metal bands that do that. Anthrax is a great example where Scott will play the rhythms and John plays all the leads and Charlie plays some, color as well. But then you've got a band like Avatar where both guitar players absolutely are super unique, very different sounds. One's active, one's passive, all those kind of things. It really adds to the depth of the recordings, I think, when you have two distinct great guitar players, which clearly Maiden has. I love both guitar players in Iron Maiden. Like, they're just their tones, their style. I can genuinely tell which one's playing which solo, which you are probably the expert on that. But usually,
Jericho and I can,
sure. I'm sure you can. But it's interesting. And of course, Steve Harris's bass sound is super unique, and he's got the finger clacky thing going. But on this record, it's, I don't want to use the word reined in, but it feels the most cohesive with the drums. And I think when you get into the Nico records, the bass almost becomes more audible, because I think they relied on the bass for the depth of the bottom end more than the drums because of Nico's busyness.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this record too is a dark sounding record. It just sounds dark, which of course I love. And I think that adds to what's going on in the record. I can't explain why that is or what makes it that way. I've listened to this record, millions of times. But it just has, when you listen to it compared to other Maiden records, just a darker, heavier record for whatever reason that is.
Absolutely. And it just has a vibe. And I think Peace of Mind has a dark vibe too, in a very different way. And obviously different drummer, different studio. That's when they moved down to Compass Point and stuff. So, but yeah, there's just something about this album, the warmth and the thickness. That doesn't mean it's muddy or like has no top end. It's kind of perfect.
No. As I mentioned before, it's definitely not muddy at all.
No, it's kind of perfect. And everything about the mix, I still listen to it and I'm just amazed at how good it sounds.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, it's my favorite album of all time. And it's just, to me, it's a perfect heavy metal album. And this song in particular, I mean, this one and How I'll Be Thy Name. But yeah, I mean, just again, so many classics. And this song particularly is just amazing. And it's also interesting, we've talked about this a lot with sequencing. And you would think this would be the first song on the record, right? Which it's not. But it's the first song on side 2, which in a lot of cases became more important than even the first song on the first side of the record. When you're listening to vinyl and you got to pick up the record and flip it over, and there's a little bit of a break. So interesting how that went.
Talk to any musician who's recorded their greatest album. They didn't know it at the time. I've many times read, Hammett talking about recording Master of Puppets, and he's like, it's just another record. We were just making, we had no idea we were making history, And I think with Maiden, probably the same thing. And they probably thought, let's open the record with something really punchy and fast, and, wasn't it.
Yeah. Oh, I love Invaders. I'll argue about that every day. But
me too.
The thing, though, because of doing this podcast, it's giving me a lot more insight on musicians and how they think about things, because you're talking about them making music, and I always like to ask, when you guys were in the studio, did you realize you were making something special? And you can't predict that you're making an all-time iconic record, or you're never going to say that. But I think a lot of times, and this as a producer, when you're in the studio and you're making a record, and it's you feel it's good. Like, you don't know how good it's going to be, but there's a feeling this is good, it's going well, and we think this is going to do really well. But you never know it's going to be massive like this was.
Well, exactly. And I think I've read the same kind of interviews and asked the same kind of questions. And usually it's like, yeah, we knew it was damn good. Otherwise we wouldn't be that passionate about it. But, did you know it was going to become the greatest metal album of all time, or one of the top 3 or 4? Number of the Beast is in my top 4. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you could never predict that, but, certainly they were on to something at the time. So
when you're in the studio, though, and you're working on a great song, I always know it, especially in the last 10 or 15 years when I've gotten to work with great artists that, have a label and have, the push behind them. I can usually predict when a song's going to do something. And the band never wants to join in that conversation. They don't want to get their hopes up or anything. But for me, as the producer on the outside, I can always look in and say, you know what? That's the song. That's the one. It's going to do something for your career and make you a bigger band. And, 9 times out of 10, I'm generally right. And I'm sure they felt that making some of these songs.
Yeah, I mean, you would think they would have to.
Yeah.
But thanks again for doing this, my friend. Always a pleasure to have you on. And we'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Happy to be here. Thanks again, Brian.
Hey, everyone. Brian Slagel here, founder of Metal Blade Records. I spent my whole entire life trying to make metal history and make metal better and promote metal as much as I can. And now there's a brand new way for you to test your metal knowledge and relive those iconic moments. It's called Metal Mondays, the official metal trivia game from Metal Blade and Pantheon Media, and it's free to play right now. Every Monday, a new game drops. From Slayer, Supremacy to Death, Metal 101, 80s, Metal Blade Classics, and tons more. You'll battle it out on the leaderboards, win killer prizes, and even score some exclusive Metal Blade merch. So if you think you know your riffs, your legends, and your deep cuts, prove it. Download Hit Replay on the App Store or Google Play, or head to metalbladerecords.com/Metal Mondays and start playing today. Because in metal, there's no off days. Only Metal Mondays. Metal Mondays. Play loud, play true, and play to win.
This episode is brought to you by Beneful. Mornings are when the grind starts. Stretches, immaculate. Cardio, crushed it. Territory, marked. Sorry, geraniums. The dog routine is on point, but it can get a little wolf. That's why I fuel up with high-protein Beneful freshly prepared meals. I'm eating clean with real meat and veggies, served fresh from the pantry. Kick boring in the bowl with Beneful freshly prepared meals. Visit Purina.com/Beneful to shop now.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You know those friends who support your preference for podcasts over music on road trips? That's the energy State Farm brings to insurance. With over 19,000 local agents, they help you find the coverage that fits your needs, so you can spend less time worrying about insurance and more time enjoying the ride. Download the State Farm app or go online at statefarm.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Get business done with the new American Express Graphite Business Cash Unlimited card. With unlimited 2% cash back on all eligible purchases, unlimited 5% cash back on flights and prepaid hotels booked through American Express Travel Online, and a flexible spending capacity that can grow with your business, you'll have the confidence to keep building. Apply today and earn a welcome offer of $1,500 cash back after you spend $50,000 in qualifying purchases on your new card within the first 6 months of card membership. Terms apply. Learn more at go.amex/graphite.
All right. So you know him as the lead singer of Crimson Glory and the current lead singer of the legendary heavy metal band Queensryche, Mr. Todd La Torre. How are you, sir?
What's up, man? It's been a hot minute.
I know, right?
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. Good to have you on here.
Thanks for having me.
And anytime I get to talk about Iron Maiden, which is my favorite band of all time, is a good thing. So we're talking about the song Number of the Beast. This was one of the ones, I gave you some options and you picked this song. Give me your reasons why.
Geez, it was hard to choose the songs that you gave me, but it's the first album with Bruce Dickinson. And also I love, there's like a little, to the average listener, it might not feel like it, but there's a little prog element to this song, especially the timing in the intro and the verses. The chorus straightens out, but I think it's a 6/4 time. It just encompasses everything that you would want in a great power metal, heavy metal song. It's all there. The guitar riffs, Nico's very unique drumming.
Oh, no. Clive Burr was on this one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
This is Clive's unfortunately, his last record with them. So no, it's Clive Burr.
Foolish of me. Sorry. Yes.
You're okay.
But nevertheless, both Nico and Clive, growing up as a drummer and learning the earlier material, I still feel like the drums of Iron Maiden were not approached in like necessarily a heavy metal sense. I still feel that it's probably some of the hardest drumming to copy with the right feel. There's a lot of drummers that can play the parts, but I still think there's a very, very, and I'm sure other drummers would agree, there's a very distinct thing about the drumming in Iron Maiden. But it's just one of the best songs they've ever written. It's an amazing record. All the songs on the album are killer. And I just saw their kickoff tour in Athens, Greece. And when they played Number of the Beast, the place just went insane. It's just a classic, timeless, legendary song that everyone loves. So yeah, it was easy to pick this song.
It's interesting too. I never really thought about this that much, but when you talk about the drummers for Iron Maiden, and both Clive Burr, who's on this song, and of course Nico McBrain, who came afterwards, are both incredible drummers. And what's interesting about Maiden is that Maiden's run by the bass player, and he writes predominantly a lot of the music and plays a very different style, very busy sort of style. So it's interesting how generally it's one or the other, right? Usually the bass player is kind of just holding it down if the drummer's kind of all over the place, or you've kind of got a simple drummer if the bass player is doing a lot of stuff. But in Maiden, they're both doing a lot, and it works perfectly somehow.
It definitely works. It's a good point that you make, because like you say, usually bass players are kind of just more laying down that foundation, whereas Steve Harris is working a lot. You know, he's not just playing quarter notes and just laying in a little pocket there. He's doing his gallops, and he's all over the place. And it's one of those bands where the bass playing stands out, but it's not like too much. It doesn't sound too busy or overwhelming in any way. And they've done an amazing job being able to do that. Yeah, a lot of bands I don't think could get away with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. When really the only time I ever actually met Steve Harris was I interviewed him for my fanzine in 1981. The first time I saw them, they were playing in Houston on the tour with Judas Priest. But one of the questions I asked him was, you know, you're a bass player. Do you write the music on the bass or on a guitar? He said, no, I write the music on the bass, which is really interesting. I don't know if that's still the case to this day, but clearly, you know, this is right around the time that Number of the Beast was happening. So I imagine that's how he was doing it. So it's just amazing to me. I can write these brilliant, amazing songs on bass, and then it all translates into guitar and everything else.
I would probably guess that he does it the same way. I mean, maybe he has a guitar riff in mind, but yeah, I think once you just are great at something and it's natural to you, it's just kind of what you're going to do, and you're going to write that way. Joey Vera is another great example of a bass player that's playing a lot. But when you listen to, you know, Armored Saint in their music, it's not like intrusive or abrasive at all. But when you watch him play, or you really focus in on the bass lines, I mean, the dude is just super creative and a machine. And he's one of those examples I could think of that is similar in that way, where he's doing a lot, but it's complementary. It's not overpowering anything else. It's keeping in mind that foundation, maybe accenting on a guitar riff if it's necessary, but not just copying everything the guitar players are doing or holding just a root note down, but walking up and down the bass.
Yeah, he's amazing. That's why he's in 100 bands. They all want him to play.
He's in high demand.
Yes, very much so, as he should be.
Yeah.
And a wonderful human being as well. So this is Iron Maiden's first album with Bruce Dickinson. And what people don't remember, and I'm honored enough that I'm in the Iron Maiden film, Burning Ambition, and one of the things that they used from me was talking about how when Paul Di'Anno was replaced, that when Bruce came in, it wasn't just all like, okay, we all love Bruce now. It was definitely kind of split at that time, with people who loved the Di'Anno stuff and then people who loved the Dickinson stuff. And I, of course, loved both. And I knew I was a big Samson fan, which is Dickinson's band before this. So I knew he was going to be great because he was great in that. So I love the way he sounded. It's definitely a little bit different. You know, Di'Anno's a little punkier, but a little bit different. But this song in particular is an interesting one because, first of all, it has maybe the greatest scream of all time. I love that scream. Maybe Roger Daltrey might have him one up, but it's pretty close. I remember reading, and I think it was in Bruce's book, or I can't remember if it was in his book or somewhere, but he was recording this song in particular, and he wasn't getting it. Like Martin Birch, the amazing producer, was like, you know, they were working on it, and Bruce wasn't really getting it, and he wasn't feeling it, and neither was Martin. And they finally, you know, took a break and just kind of told, I forget exactly what Martin said or what Bruce said, Martin said, but he just basically said, just relax and do your thing. And of course, he nails it in this, you know, incredible epic song. So it's interesting. How is it, you know, you're a singer obviously in the studio. What happens when that you get to that point where it's like, it's just not quite working, you don't really feel it, and you have to take a break or take a different look at it somehow?
I mean, that's super frustrating. Usually by the time you're recording the album, you've already done all the demos, you've done pre-production, you kind of know what you're going to do. But there are those moments where, you know, you have an idea on the fly, or maybe you killed it on the demo and then you're getting ready to like record it, quote, for real for the album. And I don't know, maybe a guitar part changed, maybe something changed and it's just not working as well, or maybe you're just not capturing that X factor of what was magical in that demo delivery. And it can be very discouraging. It can be super discouraging when, you know, you are trying something and maybe you're just, as a performance perspective, maybe you're just not playing it right, or you're not delivering something how you know it really needs to be for the album. And then a lot of times what I will do I mean, I will just beat myself to death going over and over and over. And I'm a perfectionist where, our producer Zeus, he'll be like, dude, that was great. And I'm not satisfied inside. And I'll be like, nope, do it again. He's like, no. I'm like, do it again, do it again, do it again. And then there's times where I'll be like, all right, yeah, I'm kind of spent today. He'll be like, I think we already have the take. A lot of times I'll be like, put a note in Pro Tools, make a marker that I want to redo it at some point. And then I just usually put it to bed. You reach a certain point where you're like, look, you're not going to do it any better. Today's not the day. Put it aside, work on something else.
Yeah, but then when you do kind of hit it right, you know when you do it, right?
100%. Here's an example. When we recorded Light Years, when we were doing the demo, Eddie was staying at my place and we were in my studio and we were still finishing up some demos. And he had this line that says single file form in line on Light Years at the very end. And my voice, I was starting to get a cold and I had a very deep voice down here. I just went in, my highs were like stratosphere. And I did this really high thing, single file form in line. I did it like 5 times in a row flawlessly. And it just, I knew, like, I go, dude, any one of those takes, I don't even know if you can distinguish them from the others. They're perfect. And when you just nail something, it's, it, but I think the artist in all of us, and you too, being an owner of a legendary, iconic label and being a creative guy and having your own ideas with marketing or art direction or, all of the things that you go through that I don't really know, but you have to learn when to put the paintbrush down too. And you have to know when to say, we're done. This is great. Otherwise, there's a million different ways you can do something. It doesn't mean you have to change it.
Exactly. So where did you come in on the Iron Maiden train? What was your first Iron Maiden album?
If you could slap me through the screen, you would. I came in on, I had heard Number of the Beast, but when I became like a fan of Iron Maiden was probably the Seventh Son album.
It's one of my favorite Iron Maiden records. And it's an interesting one because for some reason in the US, it's not as big as the other ones were, but it's, I think, one of their, if not their biggest, one of their biggest albums ever. I love that record. I love every song on that record.
It's my absolute favorite Iron Maiden album of all time, and there ever will be. And Peace of Mind is another huge favorite too. But I came in super late. I had heard some stuff, but I never really got it until an old bandmate of mine picked me up to take me. We were in high school, picked me up, and I heard "Can I Play with Madness?" And when I heard that vibe, that vibrato that Bruce had, something inside of me changed forever. It was just resonated with me in the most peculiar, special, profound way. And then I became obsessed with that voicing, that style. And I bought this. I go, what is that off of? And he told me this was a cassette. And I went and I bought the CD. And I mean, to this day, that's one of a handful of records that make me feel really, really great. And it feels empowering and it's nostalgic and it's inspiring. And it doesn't feel like it's getting old. I mean, when I hear The Clairvoyant or Moonchild or The Evil That Men Do or, dude, I wish I wrote one of those songs. And that whole record and the artwork, I always wanted to get that artwork where Eddie's holding is it his heart or his intestines or something? I always wanted to get that tattooed somewhere huge on my back, or there he is with the crystal ball and the pen. And I had this huge poster in my room. And it just, to me, that is the epitome of the best artwork to this day. And I mean, they have amazing artwork on everything, but that's when I came into Iron Maiden, for real. Then I had to go back, right? I had to go backwards. And some people will laugh. They'll be like, you don't know. But I mean, I've done my homework and I've gone back and I listened to the Paul Di'Anno stuff, and you're totally right. He is way more punk, but he still has this amazing sound.
Oh yeah.
I think it's all great. I mean, I probably like Bruce Dickinson's voice more because I like more of that operatic thing. But there was an attitude of Paul Di'Anno that was very pure. And I love that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where there aren't very
yeah.
many bands could replace singers. Queensryche is another one that did a good job of that. Thank you.
Thanks.
So this is my favorite. Well, my favorite metal album of all time, and my favorite Iron Maiden album is Number of the Beast. It's just one of those perfect albums. I mean, really, you could argue that most of the ones that came out in the '80s were kind of perfect albums, I think, for Maiden. But this one is just perfect for me, and I love that. Bands on their second or third record, they kind of become what they are going to be. And I think this one, especially with Bruce being on, it's kind of the first record that you go like, okay, that's going to be Iron Maiden now. It's going to be this, historic, legendary band. And it kind of started from there. And it's also interesting, this song became part of the whole PMRC nonsense where it's like, oh, it's satanic and oh, yada, yada. And it's like, they're just telling stories. We've all defended, lyrics and music for forever. And look, me having a lot of very controversial bands on our label have done this a lot, but they're just telling stories. It's like a movie. There's no different from a movie, except they're just telling stories with music. And for people to take it so literally, I always go like, what? It's just entertainment. Just relax.
Back then, you're talking 82, right? 82 this came out? Okay. So, you're just a couple years off of the 70s. And so you really didn't have, aside of like punk, or you had Alice Cooper, who was like, shocking, and Sabbath, right? You had stuff like that. But, so you have like a time where all of that censorship things trying to happen. You got Dee Snider, you got Frank Zappa, you have these pioneers and champions trying to fight for free speech and not trying to stifle art. And again, back in 1982, this was pretty pushing the envelope. The Number of the Beast, 666 is in the lyrics, and now it's like, it's child's play, but it's so, the thing I love about it is it stood the test of time, and it's timeless. And I don't care if you're a black metal artist or grindcore or that, everybody likes this song. If you're into metal, you like this song.
Yeah, Iron Maiden's one of those bands where every single metal band, like you said, and it's criminal that they just now got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is talking about one of the biggest rock and metal bands of all time, and they just now are getting in. And I love the fact that they're not going to go. They don't care. They've always said that they don't care, and I love that about them.
I don't think they should.
Yeah,
care.
They shouldn't. They're beyond being in things like this. They're their own unique entity in and of itself, and they're one of those bands too that's really interesting. They've never really had a hit single. They've never, they had a couple of videos on MTV back in the day, but not really a lot of the mainstream stuff. But they've become massively huge because, they're my favorite band, so I think they're the most amazing band ever. But they're doing it for the fans, and they're people show up and come to see them and listen to them, not because they're playing on the radio all the time, because they're not, but because they're just so good. And it's a very fan based thing. I think Iron Maiden fans feel very close to them because it's like, this is our band, and it's not a mainstream sort of thing, even though they're big enough to be mainstream.
Yeah, look, when we were all listening to Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All and Master of Puppets, was like that. Metallica was our band too, right? When Metallica got the huge commercial success, you have the purists that are like, oh, they sold out. And I love Lars's reply. He goes, yep, we sell out every single night.
Yeah. Well, I've told this story a lot, but Metallica has been quote unquote selling out since the very beginning, because when Ride the Lightning came out, a lot of the hardcore fans were very upset that there were acoustic guitars on that record. And the saying back in the day amongst a lot of the hardcore Metallica fans who loved the first record were like, oh, this is Ride the Light Bulb. It's not as heavy. So they've literally been selling out since Ride the Lightning. So they don't care about any of that stuff anymore.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned, they didn't have the commercial success. And okay, Metallica sold out in the Athens Stadium, I don't know, it was 2 hours or something. The place was sold out,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people, 80,000, 100,000. Whatever that stadium holds, it's a lot. I think Iron Maiden had between 50 and 60,000. It was still healthy. And for a band, again, that's playing stadiums without that commercial success is incredible. And yes, they are still like our band that, made it on the support of the underground, the music, the the musicians. It didn't get the air. Okay, they got some airplay, but again, it was not a commercially successful band. And to see that they're, one of the biggest bands in the world in this genre is awesome that they're still doing it.
Yeah, Rod Smallwood told me once, and by the way, it's bizarre that I'm friends with Rod Smallwood. If you would have told 18-year-old me that, I would be like, you're insane. Strangely enough, Iron Maiden's worst market is the U.S. And they play stadiums everywhere, like you've seen in Europe and South America and Asia, everywhere, just Australia. But America, they don't, which I'm happy about because as a resident here, they still play mostly arenas. And I'd much rather see a show in an arena than a stadium. I'm not a big stadium guy. Although this new Maiden tour, I think they're only doing 6 or 7 arenas, and the rest of them are all stadiums. So they're moving up to that. Like, oh man, they're only playing stadiums, I'm not a big stadium guy. Just too many people, too big a thing. The whole shebang.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are worse problems to have as a band, right. But I've mentioned to Steve Harris, like, dude, just throwing it out there. Queensryche would love to go on a
Queensryche
tour.
Iron Maiden tour would be amazing. It's interesting that Metal Blade bands that have opened for them, so I'm eternally thankful for that. But yeah, it's interesting that that Queensryche has not toured with Maiden.
And I know that Steve, he likes Queensryche's music. He's worn Queensryche shirts on stage back in the day.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, we did that Judas Priest, those 2 tours with them, and it was like a perfect pairing. I think a Queensryche going out on the road with Iron Maiden would be amazing. It's kind of a bucket list thing for me. I don't know that it'll ever happen, but
never say never.
Like you said, it's Steve's band, pretty much calls the shots as far as I understand it. And, they don't need an opener. So I'm guessing that Steve likes a band and wants him to go out with him, and that's how it happens.
That's pretty much it. And, Rod definitely has a bit of a say in there too. But like you said, they don't really need an opener. Same thing with Metallica. So they just kind of pick whatever. So we're talking about Queensryche and what have you here. First of all, I have to say the last record, Digital Noise Alliance, is incredible.
Oh, thanks.
It's probably certainly in my top 5 Queensryche records ever, maybe top 3. It's just incredible.
Wow.
I love that record. It's funny because my buddy Chris Santos, a chef, who I think you know as well, he texted me when the record first came out and said, "Hey, have you heard the new Queensryche record?" I said, "No, not yet. I'll get to it." And he's like, "You have to listen to it. It's incredible." So I said, "Okay, if he's telling me this, then and he's got good taste." So I went and listened to it. I'm like, "Oh my God, this record is phenomenal." So what's going on with you guys now? What touring plans, new record, all that good stuff?
Dude, so I'm sitting on a pile of Queensryche demos that I have to write lyrics and melodies to. The problem is every time I turn around, I mean, I'm on a plane again. We do like 100 shows a year. I came home from Greece for 1 day. Then we had 2 shows in Orlando. I'm home now and then flying out for a European tour. Do I want to spend the next 8 days just grinding in the studio? No. I mean, gosh, I wish I had like 2 months off where I could just be in the studio and just grind it out. It's not the most conducive environment to just be creating things that have to be great. See, folks, the luxurious lifestyle of a rock star. It's not what everybody thinks. It's a lot of hard work. I get it, especially as we all get older. Like, just travel is not nearly as fun as it used to be. It's also worse, really, for singers, because singers have to really take care of themselves. Because clearly, if you're the guitar player and you get a cold or something, it doesn't really matter. But if the singer gets sick, then it's trouble. So you've got to be extra healthy on the road, which is a whole other thing too. Yes, a lot of the guys will want to go out to a pub or a bar after the show or do something. And, I don't drink. I quit smoking cigarettes 3.5 years ago. And so like talking is the worst thing that I can do. And then I have to say to them, hey, be careful when you go out because you're coming back on the bus. And, 9 times out of 10, somebody's got the sniffles and then it starts going around the bus. And yeah, it's a lot of pressure for singers because everything is right here. The whole machine stops if I can't sing. And that's, that's a lot to kind of deal with sometimes. But I've been doing this now with Queensryche for 14 years. This is my 14th year. You know, in all these years, I've had to cancel a handful of shows because I was truly like very sick. Yeah, it's different for the singers for sure.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I know that's a whole different thing. Well, dude, thank you so much for all of this. This is great. Continued great. Good luck with Queensryche. I love that you guys are still touring. That means I get to still see you guys. And
Thank you, man.
Thanks for everything. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.
That'll do it. Fun episode. Great having Todd La Torre on from Queensryche. Great guy and super fun to talk to him. Really great having our old friend, Mr. Jay Ruston, back to talk about the production. Mr. Martin Popoff, as always. Lizzie Borden for our theme song, and the man who makes it all happen, our producer, Christian Blatt. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
In Michigan, you can feel the energy everywhere in the fresh breeze of a riverfront stroll or nightlife that hums with electricity. Let it bring you together in pure Michigan. Find your season at michigan.org.